Thousands of people a year climb a wooded hill south of Darmstadt looking for a laboratory. There isn't one. There never was. No mad doctor worked on this hill. No body was stitched together up here. No lightning ever came down through a roof to wake something that should have stayed asleep. And the woman whose novel gave this castle the most famous name in horror almost certainly never set eyes on it. Here is the part that should stop you. The story connecting this place to Frankenstein is not ancient. It is not medieval. It is not even Victorian. A historian floated it in 1975. The legend that fills this hill every October is younger than the moon landing. Strip it away and something better is standing underneath. A real castle, a real family, 400 years of documented history, and the rare distinction of never once having fallen to an enemy. This is Frankenstein Castle, and the true story is the one nobody tells. Start with the name, because the name is where the trouble begins. Franken, the Franks, a Germanic people. Stein, stone or rock. The rock of the Franks. It is a description of a crag. It has nothing to do with monsters, and it never did. The crag sits 370 meters up on a spur of the Langenberg at the northern end of a chain of strongholds along the western rim of the Odenwald. Below it runs the Old Bergstrasse, the mild wine road at the foot of the hills, about 1.5 kilometers west and 225 meters down. From the towers, the view runs out across the flat land toward the Rhine, which is the entire reason a knight built here. Most historians put that building around 1240. The first hard evidence comes a little later, a charter dated the 2nd of June, 1252, naming Conrad II Rates von Breuberg and his wife Elizabeth von Weiterstadt at a place the Latin records as
Super Castro in Frankenstein.
On the castle at Frankenstein, and read it carefully because the wording does real work. It says the castle was already standing, already in use. This is a first mention. It is not a founding. Conrad took the hill, took the name, and started calling himself Conrad I von Frankenstein. His descendants would carry it for the next 400 years. You will also read that a knight named Arbogast won a fortress here in the 10th century in a game of arms. That story rests on nothing at all. Hold on to that feeling. It is going to come back. The Frankensteiners were never the free lords the romance implies. The castle began as a fief held from the counts of Katzenelnbogen, who were considerably more powerful than the family on the hill. A charter from a few years after 1252 states that dependence flatly, with no attempt to dress it up. These men were castellans, and in 1433 one of them travelled all the way to the Holy Land in the company of his lord. Then, in the 14th century, the family split in two, and rather than one side leaving, they divided the castle itself under a minutely worded peace agreement, the Burg Frieden of 1363. Picture that, two branches of one family sharing one hilltop, with a written treaty governing who may do what and where. It did not produce harmony, it produced generations of lawsuits. Around 1400 their fortunes turned. The cramped seat was enlarged with an outer bailey to the north and thoroughly modernized, and in 1402 the castle was recognized as an imperial fief, free at last of the Katzenelnbogen counts. Of everything raised in that new outer bailey, exactly one building still stands. The chapel, finished in 1474. Keep an eye on it. It outlasts every wall around it, and it ends up serving a far gentler purpose than anything else on this hill. In 1662, the lords of Frankenstein sold up. The castle and the lordship went to Landgrave Ludwig VI of Hesse-Darmstadt, and the family left the Odenwald for good, buying a new seat in Middle Franconia, where their descendants live to this day. 8 years later, the emperor raised them to imperial barons, a title the family still carries. And the castle they walked away from had earned something rare. In 4 centuries, it had never been besieged, never stormed, never destroyed in war. Look at the gate tower and you can see the thinking. It was deliberately left open at the back, no rear wall, so that if an enemy ever took it, the defenders in the core could keep firing straight into it and the attackers would have nowhere to shelter. It is a clever piece of design. Nobody ever made it necessary. So what ruined Frankenstein? Neglect. The new owner cared about the territory, not the old stronghold on the hill. The place was put to humbler work, housing military invalids, sheltering people during the wars of Louis XIV. Treasure hunters chasing rumors of hidden gold pulled down walls and broke open the cellars. Lead was stripped off the roofs and sold. Tiles, timber, stairs, the contents sold. And farmers from the valley villages came up the hill and quarried the walls for cheap building stone until in the worst stretches scarcely one block sat on another. No army could take this castle. Its own neighbours carried it away, a cartload at a time. By the early 19th century, the overgrown shell on the hill had become something new, a destination. Romantic taste prized exactly this, a moss-covered ruin above a wide view, loaded with the imagined glamour of knighthood. Hikers and day-trippers climbed up to feel the past. And writers arriving to find stones without stories gave the stones some stories. Grand Duke Ludwig III tried to halt the decay around the middle of the century. His restoration did secure the ruin, but it was guided by romantic taste rather than archaeology, and it was carried out inaccurately, in places adding flaws and features the castle had never had. In 1851, he also gathered the family's Renaissance grave monuments out of 2 parish churches and installed them in the chapel, where they still stand. And then there is the tall tower over the Inner Bailey, the one that looks the most convincingly medieval in photographs. It went up in 1892. So here is where we actually are before the monster has even arrived. A genuine medieval castle, wearing a layer of 19th century invention that visitors now mistake for the real thing. This hill had been in the business of manufacturing its own past for 100 years, before anybody thought to mention Mary Shelley. Every version of the legend runs through one real man. Johann Conrad Dippel was born at this castle on the 10th of August, 1673, the son of a Lutheran pastor. He grew into one of the strangest figures of the German Enlightenment. Theologian, alchemist, self-styled physician, and a man who managed to quarrel with very nearly everybody he met. He is best remembered for Dippel's oil, a foul-smelling animal oil distilled from bones and offal, which he marketed as a near-universal medicine and an elixir of life. By one account, he offered the formula to the Landgrave in exchange for the castle he was born in, and was turned down. His real life needed no monsters. Trained in theology at Gießen, he feuded with the Lutheran orthodoxy of his day, drifted into radical pietism, wandered between Germany, the Netherlands, and Scandinavia, and spent years in prison for his heretical pamphlets. His animal oil outlived him by more than a century, used as a medicine, an insect repellent, and, in the Second World War, as a way to spoil well water so retreating armies could not drink it. That is the documented Dippel. Now here is the other one. Body snatching, corpses dragged up the hill, experiments behind the chapel walls. None of it has any basis in the record. Historians point out that nothing shows Dippel ever came back to this castle after he finished his studies in 1693, as a young man of 20, with 4 decades of life still ahead of him somewhere else. And then there is my favorite. You will read in a great many places that Dippel experimented with nitroglycerin up here. Nitroglycerin was discovered in 1847. Dippel died in 1734. The claim is off by 113 years. The man was real. The oil was real. The ghoul was assembled long after he was safely dead, which brings us to the claim that draws almost everybody here, that this castle inspired Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus. It is a wonderful idea. Let us look at what holds it up. In the summer of 1814, Mary, then still Mary Godwin, 16 years old when she set out, ran away to the continent with Percy Shelley and her stepsister Claire. 6 weeks later, out of money, they came home. And they came home the cheap way, by water, down the Rhine. Their boat stopped at Gernsheim, a Rhine town about 16 kilometers, 10 miles, from this hill. On a clear day from the riverbank, a traveler might just make out towers on the distant hills. That is the entire geographic connection. 10 miles and a maybe. There is no mention of this castle in her journals, no record that she climbed the hill, and there is no castle of any kind in the novel, none. Victor Frankenstein is a Swiss student from Geneva who does his work in a rented room at the University of Ingolstadt. Even the lightning is wrong. That belongs to the 1931 film, not to the book. But we can do better than absence. Because Mary Shelley did publish an account of that voyage, History of a 6 Weeks Tour, in 1817, the year before Frankenstein. And she describes this exact stretch of river.
The country was uninteresting. We saw on the shores few objects that called forth our attention, if I except the town of Mannheim, which was strikingly neat and clean.
That is the future author of Frankenstein, sailing past the Odenwald, reporting that nothing on either bank was worth looking at, except how tidy Mannheim was. She names no castle. She names no Gernsheim. In the whole published book, the word Frankenstein does not appear once. So where does the legend actually come from? 1975. A historian named Radu Florescu published a book proposing the link, Dippel as Shelley's model, this castle as the place she caught the story. And look closely at the shape of the argument, because it is a beautiful piece of machinery. Florescu's explanation for the total absence of any evidence was that Mary Shelley suppressed it, that she hid the visit to protect her claim to originality. Which means the silence in her journals is no longer a problem for the theory. The silence becomes the proof. There is no possible piece of evidence that could count against it. In 1999, a book by the castle's own resident author popularized the story across Germany. German scholarship has since treated the link not as a discovery, but as a constructed myth, and has traced step by step how it was built. The supporting threads go the same way. A favorite one holds that the brothers Grimm passed the tale to Shelley's stepmother, who translated their fairy stories into English. Suggestive, unproven. The nearby Ilbes Burg is widely called a witch's mountain, second only to the Brocken, and it does not appear in the region's actual witch trial records. Meanwhile, the oldest legend on this hill has nothing to do with monsters at all. A knight called Georg killed a dragon in a quarry below the castle, a creature the village could only keep quiet by feeding it young girls. Georg von Frankenstein was real. He died in 1531, and the village of Neighbours put up a life-sized monument to him in its church. The knight in full armor, sword and war hammer in his hands, standing on a dragon, angels lowering a crown onto his head. Now look at what that carving is actually doing. His name was Georg, and St. George is the saint who kills dragons. The stone is almost certainly just naming the man's patron saint, and the dragon legend grew up afterwards, out of people reading a picture as a report. Which is this entire hill in one sentence. An image gets mistaken for evidence. 400 years later, somebody did it again with a novel. For nearly half a century, the legend had a season. From 1977, American servicemen stationed around Darmstadt ran a Halloween festival in these ruins. It grew into one of the largest in Germany, costumed actors and stage effects filling the castle across 3 weekends every autumn. And the nickname that did the marketing had come from Armed Forces Radio, the home of the monster. Read that again. The myth had a marketing department, and it broadcast in English. In 2023, the lease ended and the castle closed for a long restoration. From 2024, the festival moved to a bigger ruin northwest of Frankfurt. The monsters left. They took the name with them and went to a different hill. What stayed is the chapel. Finished in 1474, the one building of the outer bailey that never came down. For more than 20 years now, the municipality has used it as a registry office. The oldest surviving room on this rock, and its work today is weddings. We have done this before on this channel. Off Marseille there is a fortress called the Château d'If, a real prison on a real island, which the whole world knows as the cell of a man who never existed. Edmond Dantes was invented by Alexandre Dumas. The tourists still ask to see his cell. Frankenstein is the same trick, run in reverse. At Dieppe, fiction moved into a real prison. Here, fiction moved into a real castle, and then charged admission. And none of that makes the legend worthless. A story believed by millions is a real thing in the world. A castle that lends its name to the first science fiction novel has earned its fame, even if it never housed the laboratory. The honest position is simply to say which part is history and which part is folklore. And then enjoy the folklore as folklore. Because here is what the marketing costs you. While everyone is looking for a laboratory that was never built, nobody is looking at the gate tower left deliberately open at the back, or the chapel that has outlived every wall around it, or the plain fact that in 400 years no enemy ever took this castle, and that in the end it was taken apart by farmers who needed stone. The name means the Rock of the Franks. The monster arrived in 1975, and the castle underneath has been telling a better story the whole time, to almost nobody. If you want to go, one thing first. The castle has been closed since 2023 for a long restoration, and no completion date has been announced. So check the Hesse Heritage Site before you travel. The woodland trails around the hill stay open, and the view out over the Rhine plain costs nothing. And if castles with stories like this one are your kind of history, subscribe. The Stone Keep Atlas archive already holds 100 of them, from the Rhine to the Loire, with more episodes on the way.